I'm Jason Hager with EspressoTrainer.com, here with you again for another video. Today I want to talk about extraction, what it means, what it does, and how it's used in brewing coffee. We use this word a lot in regards to brewing coffee. We use words like under-extracted and over-extracted, but what does this really mean? The word extraction is really a combination of a Latin prefix and a Latin root. The prefix ex means out, or out of, or from. The word track, which is the root, means to drag or to pull. So literally, it means to pull out. All right. So what then is a complete extraction? If an extraction is to pull out, that means to pull everything out, right? When we talk about a full or complete extraction, what we really mean is a limit or balance of taste, and not the actual end limit of potential extraction. What I mean by that is if we were to extract everything out of the coffee, we would really refer to it as over-extracted and not necessarily extracted, right? So complete is kind of a misnomer. However, we mean it in regards to taste balance. And when we say under-extraction, what we tend to refer to is an unpleasant balance leaning towards acidity and not enough bitters extracted into the solution. And over-extracted usually means we have too many bitters into the solution, so the end result tastes bitter. And some will say, but coffee is not supposed to be bitter. And quite right. The end resulting taste should not be bitter, at least not dominantly so. However, if we cut out the bitter compounds entirely, especially in a light roasted coffee, the result will often be unenjoyably sour. And nobody likes sour anything for the most part. Now I'd like to talk about temperature a little bit. Temperature and extraction, more specifically, too low of a temperature will often result in coffee that tastes sour. Too high of a temperature will taste bitter. Why? Because temperature is understood in two different ways. There's more energy in a hotter temperature, which means the molecules are actually moving faster. So you have an increase of agitation, which is a faster rate of extraction, right? And something as complex as coffee, however, with as many aromatic compounds as we have, more complex than wine, if you remember that. What it also refers to is what is extracted. Since the rate of extraction will determine what is left or dissolved first, this too is a balancing act. You have it too hot, then you end up with a bitter extraction. You don't get enough of the acids involved to balance it out. And if it's not hot enough, you do not extract enough of the bitters at the same rate of extraction. So it's a little on the sour side. And acidity is usually extracted first, especially at a lower temperature. Bitters are last. This phenomenon can be repeated in your own espresso bar by pulling what they call a salami. If you divide the first part, the middle part, and the last part of a shot of espresso and taste each one separately, the first part is almost always overwhelmingly intense in flavor. Everything, especially in acidic compounds. The middle is often usually very balanced. Most people like this one to some degree, although it's not as complex. The last one is about like dishwater. It's horribly bitter, dilute, not very pleasant at all. But without the balance of all three, the result is not enjoyable. And if you have too much of the third compound, the result will taste bitter. And some people seem to have a balance of preference towards bitter. However, that should not really be the dominant taste. So bitters are the last thing extracted, just as we just talked about in the salami. And in between those, we find the balance of acid and bitter along with the dissolving of sugars. So it's commonly understood now where sugars are the last thing to be extracted before it starts to go bitter, on the bitter side of the balance of the taste. Okay, so what we really talk about with extraction is finding that balance. We're not really looking for sour, we're not really looking for bitter, we're looking for the complete extraction of everything that we want to express out of the coffee. This is an ethical dilemma, okay? If you only under-extract everything, you're not expressing the coffee's full potential of taste. Now, the farmer may or may not have planned it this way. Maybe they want their coffee's full expression to be served. Maybe they just want it to be enjoyed. For some coffees, this is probably a good thing. However, it depends. For most dense washed coffees, that is high-altitude coffees that are washed, you tend to want to prefer a fuller extraction, which means a longer extraction. They usually tend to have more to give in terms of desirable compounds, and not so much because you want to increase the dose. I've noticed a phenomenon in the past few years in coffee bars, where what they do is they try to compensate. Okay, so what we have is people are trying to recreate the theater of the brew method. So what they're doing is they're brewing it in front of you, which is fantastic. Everybody gets a fresh cup of coffee, adds a lot of theater to it, and it really engages the customer to talk to them about the coffees you're serving. However, a lot of times these customers are also in a hurry, and the baristas want to work through the line. What I see happening a lot is people are using a much faster extraction than is probably best for the coffee they're using. So what they're doing to compensate for the time is adding more coffee, right? So in a sense, what you have is a hyper under-extracted concentrated beverage. So yes, it's coffee. Yes, it can be tasty. However, it leans towards aromatics only and almost none of the dissolved sugars. This is not something I really like to advocate. I think it's good to have a pour-over bar, but make sure that they understand that it'll take a little bit more time. So that kind of wraps up the ideas of what I wanted to talk to you about extraction. You can carry this over into espresso as well, taking into consideration the component of pressure. Pressure will always speed up and slightly change the rate of extraction. So that's the end of this video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have another for you real soon. Thank you very much.